Hey, we're recording. Hi, this is Dr. Luke Johnson. I'm a very serious person, joined by very serious friends, Ostic and producer Jordan. And we're going to be talking about Chapter 15 from the Golden Bough today, which is the worship of the oak. But that's not all. We're also going to continue to layer some of the elements of the Jupiterian interpretation of Donald Trump. And we're going to do my favorite thing in closing. We are going to continue to explore the Apollo missions with a Jungian frame of reference. So, welcome back, everybody.
Thanks, Luke.
All right. So, well, Austin, do you want to say something before we get into this?
Not really. I was watching the film called Eddington by Ari Aster, so that's on my mind right now. I just finished watching it. With this Trump thing, with the association with lightning and everything, I saw a documentary on YouTube that was released like 5 days ago. It was about like this kind of doomsday cult that has built up around the Joe Rogan show, like Peter Thiel, and JD Vance, and everything. So they talked about something called a dark enlightenment. There's going to be a monarchical rule by a tech billionaire or tech CEO. That's what they're calling it. So in my mind, it clicked with this thing about him being associated with lightning, and then this dark enlightenment thing, and then JD Vance, this guy, and Curtis Yarvin, they're all connected with each other. They're always talking in like Lord of the Rings lingo. He's calling himself the Dark Elves and everything. So all that connected with me. So that just wanted to point it out.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a Lord of the Rings narrative here. I'm not familiar with that because it's not the right demographic for me. I think you two are much younger, so you guys probably got all the Lord of the Rings stuff. It kind of skipped a lot of Gen X people. Um, so I mean, I think that's a layer of narrative that's part of all this because you're saying Peter Thiel has like named all his companies after references to Lord of the Rings. I think, yeah, I don't even know. Is it like Palantir has something to do with like some like spheres that allow
Yeah,
you to like look into the future or something?
yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, it's supposed to show you a certain narrow strain of reality, but if you're not careful with that, it shows like if you have a very narrow view of life and you're like excluding and you have this illusion of knowledge within yourself, it can really mess with you and your worldview, and then it can like really make you take very strange decisions and come to very strange conclusions. So that's what the Palantir thing is about.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you mentioned Peter Thiel, and we've got so many slides to cover. But I have a friend who's like trying to convince me to do like a response to Peter Thiel's like 4-part lecture series on the Antichrist, which is interesting that he's so fascinated with the Antichrist and in control of so much of this technology. Um, I don't think I have time for that. I'm pretty satisfied with my line of research right here. I will say though that some of Peter Thiel's interests relate back to our study of the Golden Bough because he was highly influenced by Rene Girard, and Rene Girard probably offers the most robust critique of the Golden Bough that I've or Frazer's points within the Golden Bough so far. But that's a future topic. What I wanted to do, not and I appreciate you sharing your insight there. What I want to do, I kind of before we just launch into it, I wanted to keep things kind of light and talk about some synchronicities associated with the show. So if we could go to the next slide, Jordan. I usually save um I either we keep them in our group chat or like or whatever. We had a crazy one a couple weeks ago with this like this palace of gold that like suddenly appeared or seemed to have suddenly appeared in West Virginia. But what was so interesting, somebody was connected to this. We've a lot of what we've been talking about the past month or so is this developing idea that I've had about how the Apollo missions, through a certain lens, could be understood as a resurgence of solar mythology, cosmic conception, and and I think after the last show we did, um, I was having a conversation with another collaborator, my friend Nikki, who goes by Anna Nicole Wordsmith on Twitter, and we were just catching up, and she was telling me that she was reading a UFO book and the author was this guy Ben Mesrich. And like the next day, the New York Post ran this article about how this couple stole moon rocks so that they could have sex on the moon. They copulated on top of these moon rocks, and I zoomed in on the photo, and in the background I saw that Ben Mesrich, the same guy that I learned about the night before, who has written this UFO book, had written a book about this particular incident, about the stolen moon rocks and illicit sex. It's called Sex on the Moon. So, this all happened in less than 24 hours. I never heard of this person, and like suddenly there's this. So I thought that was super, super funny. And I don't know. I've been studying space history for a long time, for close to a decade now. I think I would have heard about this, but maybe this one got past me. Maybe I'm reaching here. So the next one, Jordan, if that's okay. Uh, this one happened a couple days ago. We've been obsessing over the Jung's compulsion of the name concept. We've been going deep down this rabbit hole about the names of the individuals that are responsible for the Apollo and Artemis programs. And we've looked at Abraham Silverstein, and we've looked at Jim Bridenstine, who's responsible for the Artemis program. And we diagnosed their name. Abraham Silverstein was pretty compelling because it's the father of many, and it means silver stone. It's like he was sort of born for the role, right, of overseeing the Apollo program. And out of nowhere, Alicia Silverstone, her name's the exact same thing, is like on the press junket, doing a review of her classic movie roles, especially Clueless, which, if you watch it carefully, there's a scene that does have an allusion to Apollo in it. It'll jump out at you now that I've brought it to your attention, but it's so fitting that it would be within a movie called Clueless. So I just thought this was also interesting that the conversation surrounding this topic seemed to be syncing up with world events as par for the course. I'm just documenting here.
Yeah, of
Just fun,
course.
just fun, just a little fun when you get personally targeted headlines.
I mean, the Lolita connection is also present in this.
What's that?
The film Lolita connection. He's
Oh
he's
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of
There
like
is a
the Humbert Humbert character.
yeah, yeah. There is a Lolita connection. There's a lot of Kubrick connections if you dig into it with Silverstone. Um, but yeah, she was this movie she's talking about. It's The Crush. It's kind of it seems to be a retail. I never saw it. I was probably a little. I wasn't the right demographic for it when it came out. I think I was like 13 years old or something. But it's it's a retelling of Lolita in a lot of ways. So yeah, interesting stuff. I mean, I was shocked. I was blown away by this. So, but maybe people are just talking about Silverstones and Silversteins all over the place. Maybe I'm reaching again. I don't know if you guys find this interesting.
I mean, it's interesting. It's happening. The reality is kind of like speaking back to you.
Yeah. This has been going on for years with me. I don't know what it means. I guess I'm building a case file that it's happening. And maybe normalizing that it's like kind of okay to talk about it. So,
People keep mentioning people keep mentioning less interesting stuff that happens to them, but like this is very consistent. I think it also
mm,
kind of like keeps you informed, keeps you plugged in into your surroundings and what's happening in the world. So that's a good way.
yeah, which makes me wonder if it's bait in some way. Like, oh my god, like my thoughts are showing up in reality. Should I consume more? Should I consume more media? Should I be online even more so I can catch the next synchronicity?
Yeah, it works like that. It
So,
works with me with
yeah.
films. I keep thinking, I keep seeing allusions to movies, and I think, oh, I have to watch this movie now. It's added to my watch list.
Yeah.
I was watching Love and Death a few days ago by the Woody Allen movie, in which there's a parody of the nuclear programs that we see in Russia and America. So Napoleon says, "My cake, this cake should have more cream. If it is supposed to have my name, it should be richer." And my competitor is building this beef recipe. and then the chef says it will never get off the ground, you know. So they're actually talking about the rockets, nuclear programs, but
Right.
he's trying to say that all these
Yeah.
things are happening by the whims of the leaders and their egos, and they're
Right.
trying to compete with each other.
And
Also,
there's like a psychosexual dimension to it as well, right? Like, which kind of makes the case about a lot of the things that we've talked about here, especially when considering these analytical psychology interpretation of the Apollo program. Like, it's really, it seems kind of silly when we start talking about there being a sexual component to it, but when you see people kind of comparing their rockets or the size of their name on a cake, it's hard to resist the idea that there's something Freudian or libidinal going on here. This is the whole thing that you see it with, like, there was I think in Trump's first term, there was all this stuff like where he was talking about who had like the bigger nuclear button or something like that. It's like my button's bigger than his button. Like, like what are we talking about?
I
What are
mean,
we?
did you think when in The Shining there's this cook, Dick Halloran, what is he supposed to represent? I mean, to you, I mean,
What in
there's a
what
polyvalent
what about in The Shining?
Dick Halloran. Like, whenever I think of him, I think
Oh,
of him like he's supposed to be a scientist of sorts. Like, Wendy is in a nuclear program. When I think of the Shining movie, because he says most of the stuff you'll never have to touch, it's supposed to be like an autonomous machine. And he tells Wendy most of the things you'll never have to touch, and she's oh well, whatever. And the how she attacks Jack, she picks up a weapon from there. The knife is her weapon that she picks up. So I kind of
mhm.
think of it like as like a arsenal of sorts. There's an like the kitchen, and in that Love and Death movie, because Kubrick he loves Woody Allen movies in general. So I think he
Yeah.
picked up that this they're cooking something, so they're like this amalgamation of scientists and like people who bring in new stuff into the reality. That's the
I hadn't
meaning of cook.
yeah, I hadn't considered Halloran as a scientist, and I'm not saying he's not, because there is, you know, there's there are like faint allusions to the nuclear program in The Shining. The scene that I'm specifically thinking of is when Danny is throwing the darts at the dartboard, and clearly, the dart is like a projectile, is like a nuclear weapon. It can come to mind, but then to make sure you're on that right track, Jack says to Danny after he comes from the games room, he says, "Did you get tired? Did you get bored of bombing the universe?" Right? Do you remember that line? It's like a very unusual line, and some people have interpreted that as an allusion to um, the nuclear tests that were done in like the 50s and 60s, where they were shot up into the sky, like Operation Fishbowl and Operation Dominic. But I hadn't done a, a systemic analysis of it in that way. But now that you're saying like Halloran might be kind of a scientist avatar, I'm curious now.
I mean, yeah, you yourself said that these are polyvalent characters, but
Oh, sure,
with
for
that
sure.
with that idea of Halloran being a scientist and then being sacrificed when a new leader, because Jack was a new caretaker, and then when like the scientist they rebelled against him, he killed the science program itself. He's like, when he kills Halloran. So I'm thinking of this like Jack is supposed to be a new government, like he has replaced Biden. He's not supposed Trump, and then Trump cuts off the funding of that program, or whenever Trump goes rogue, so he attacks those people that were already working under Biden, and then he is it connecting with
Yeah,
you?
they're
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
I see it a little bit. I see it a little bit. I don't want to get too bogged down in it because we have so much to cover. The other thing they'll say, a potential, if you're Halloran as a scientist, something I think I know that Carl Jung was very much influenced by the psychical research of J.B. Rhine, specifically the stuff that he was doing at like Duke University and like the in like the 30s in regards to like Zinner cards and things of this nature. It makes me wonder, because Halloran has The Shining as well. It makes me wonder if there could be a connection to that. I mean, and Young talks about J.B. Rhine pretty extensively in his book on synchronicity. So maybe there's a connection to that type of science that's going on there. And it shows up. The Rhine stuff shows up in the Apollo missions because Edgar Mitchell does Zinnerkart experiments. I believe was it Apollo 14 maybe, where he's doing them in outer space. He was trying to see if there would be some sort of uh, telepathy between himself and those individuals on the ground. And I believe he worked with the Rhine Institute there for a little while. So maybe that's another angle to this.
Yeah, that's pretty fascinating. I never knew about that. I'll have to check it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People it's crazy. People have no idea that there were ESP experiments during the Apollo program. It's a pretty big deal. Okay. So why don't we go to the next slide and get into the meat and potatoes? Oh, this is not. Oh, I got this right before you. I forgot this was even here. So this was. I'm trying to just listen to everything that Carl Jung did, and last night I was kind of like, man, am I doing this whole Jungian archetypal theory like all wrong by, and am I chasing like windmills? Like maybe the Jungian archetypes aren't in the nuclear uh, program. Maybe they're not in the space program. Maybe it's not the right methodology for that. And I've been using Jordan's heard it a lot. I've been using the voice activated feature on Grok. So I've been having like whole conversations, like going back and forth with the AI, trying to find connections, et cetera, et cetera. I was like, I really want to know where Jung talks about his theory being applied to real world events, not just like individuals who may have encountered an archetype, but like figures on the stage. And I think we've talked about a lot is his Wotan essay as it applies to Hitler. And we've talked about that in contradistinction to the Jupiterian archetype that seems to be emerging here. But very scantily does he refer to his archetypal theory and world events. I have a slide at the end, but then I was listening to this collection of works on dreams that Jung wrote, and these two quotes jumped out at me, and I was like, okay, we're on the right track. So the first one is, well, Jordan, why don't you read the quotes for us?
Sure. Hence, one could say, cum grano salis, that history could be constructed just as easily from one's own unconscious as from the actual texts.
And how about the second one too?
Sure. But one could almost say that if all the world's traditions were cut off at a single blow, the whole of mythology and the whole history of religion would start all over again with the next generation.
So I think these are pretty solidifying quotes. Last time we talked, I said, you know what it seems like when talking about the new mythology that we find ourselves in is that it's this living organism that is like pruned back and then kind of overtakes us again, like some sort of sprawling plant. That was the analogy. And I think you liked that analogy that I used, Ostic. I think you responded well to that. And I kind of was making that up on the spot, but it seems to be that's what Jung is saying, especially in the second quote, where he says it's just going to keep starting all over again. So really one can consult the contents of the collective unconscious to understand like how world events are going to play out and what elements are going to be part of them and how people are going to become possessed of archetypes and what narratives are going to emerge. Now I'm extrapolating a lot. There's a lot of dots I still have to connect personally, but I thought this is going to be relevant because I really doubt myself. We're going to look a little more at Trump and Jupiter. We're going to look more at Young and Apollo and this whole Jack and the Beanstalk thing that I identify. And I feel so silly talking about these things because it seems so childish and juvenile and trivial sometimes. And I'm just like, I am losing my mind. I am so lost in the sauce. And I'm like, no, this is here. This is real. I'm not reaching. So yeah, I felt a little better after I came across these quotes this morning. Do you guys have any thoughts on this?
When you first shared this with me when we were walking, it just felt like another way of talking about, like, I felt like the hologram analogy or metaphor or framing of how reality functions to be so perfectly reflected within this, particularly this first quote, that all of the stories, all of the archetypes, all of the patterns are all contained within our own unconscious and perhaps even like within a leaf in this matrix game. Um, that's what came up for me.
Yeah. What do you think, Ostic?
I mean, again, the first, I agree with Jordan, and even Finnegan's Wake. I think Joyce meant to write it as something like, if the world would be destroyed, this book would remain, and then we can construct the
That's
world all
right.
over again from this book. I think, I mean, they were both friends, Joyce and Young, I think, because he treated his daughter.
Uh,
He
uh,
visited him, I think.
yeah, friends might be. I think their relationship was a little bit more complicated. I'm not some expert. I feel like it was a little bit more touchy, but they knew they crossed paths. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it's supposed to mean. I mean, the book Finnegan's Wake, it's supposed to be like a person is waking up from a dream. That's complete pure unconsciousness. That's what the novel is supposedly about,
yeah.
from my understanding.
Well, it's about a lot of things, right?
Yeah,
It's about, it's about a lot of things. But yeah, that's interesting you brought that up. And of course, uh, uh, we have a Jungian apostle that is one of the primary interpreters of Finnegan's Wake, which is Joseph Campbell. So I'm not some expert on Finnegan's Wake. I have listened to it. I have listened to this Campbell's book, Skeleton's Key to Finnegan's Wake. I don't claim to understand it, but it's a pretty difficult book, and I don't, maybe it's not supposed to be listened to. That's how I consumed it, was through Audible. Have you read it, Ostic? Do you enjoy it? I mean, it's pretty hard to follow. I stuck with it just because I was like, okay, I know this influenced the Beatles. I know there's Jungian and Kubrickian conceptions, and so few people have read it, and I want to seem like a smart guy, so I'm going to stick with this.
I mean,
I mean, I love Ulysses is fantastic. I love Ulysses. I can't
Ulysses is
say I
pretty easy to
understand
follow.
Finnegan.
I mean, you can follow the events. I mean, I'm pretty daunted by this reputation itself. I joined a group to actually read the book. So there was this group of people. They were supposed to send voice notes, reading one page every day. But then it was
Oh,
2 years ago. So when it came to my turn, I I backed out like a fool. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty scared of the book, frankly. Because
it's intimidating.
yeah,
And
I
I
keep
mean,
reading
you're
introductions to it. Keep reading introductions, video essays, and everything. But don't. I've not dared to go to this real thing until now.
I can't imagine trying to read Finnegan's Wake. You're 24 years old. Like, I, I mean, I don't know. You're a pretty advanced kid, so I'm trying to think of myself 24 years old trying to get through Finnegan's Wake. Okay. All right. Next slide. Okay, so now we're actually going to talk about the Golden Bough. And in case you've never been a part of my channel before, like, and you're like, what are these people talking about? They're talking about all these, like, I thought I came here for the Golden Bough. You know, all of this is relevant because Jung's archetypal theory was formulated in response to the Golden Bough to a certain degree. So the Frazer's Golden Bough was incredibly influential, and the deeper I go into Jung, the more I appreciate that influence. So I'll just start with this paragraph I have prepared. Okay. This is a pretty, this chapter was only like 3 pages long, but there's some interesting stuff in it. So, across all Aryan peoples in Europe, the oak was a sacred symbol of divine power, revered as the embodiment of chief gods like Zeus for Greeks and Jupiter for Italians, who ruled over sky, rain, and thunder, with the ancient Dodona sanctuary in Greece centered on an oracular oak, where Zeus's voice was believed to speak through rustling leaves and thunderous storms. The frequent thunderstorms at Dodona, enhanced by bronze gongs mimicking thunder in the mountain ringed valley, and rituals like the sacred marriage of Zeus and Hera in Boeotia highlighted the oak's role as a divine conduit. While on Mount Lycaeus, priests dipped oak branches in springs to invoke rain, reinforcing Zeus's rain making authority. Athenian devotion was evident in an Acropolis statue of Earth praying to Zeus and communal drought prayers for rain on their cornlands, tying the oak's sanctity to agricultural prosperity and divine favor across Greek culture. So I had a lot of questions about this, and I really kind of picked what Frazer was saying apart. I had a lot of follow up questions, and I found that it was kind of best to find some images to get my mind around this. And what we have here are two images from Leonard Galtier's, um, and they're from 1615 and 1675. These are engravings that depict the Dodona sanctuary of the sacred oak. And what I want to point out here, if you go kind of zoom in on the details, I don't know if you can zoom in, Jordan, but um, in the first one, we have some devotees, perhaps priestesses, dancing around the sacred oak. And in the second one, we see Jupiter with his eagles, and I believe that to be Apollo, his son, next to the sacred oak, which I guess almost looks like a dryad. We see like a person within the oak. And from my understanding, these spirits, as Jupiter rustled through the trees, were somehow some sort of intermediaries to communicate his will to the priestesses that were there. There were three priestesses called the doves that interpreted the message from the rustling of the leaves. But you see these like circular hoop things in there, and from what I can tell, I think these are the bronze gongs that were constantly humming as the result of the winds that were going through the sanctuary at Dodona, which I thought was interesting. Um, and something that's just like kind of crazy is that it's like a scientific fact that like oaks are one of the most lightning strike prone trees around. And you can kind of understand why the oak got associated with Jupiter if it seems like he's sending down or Zeus if he's sending down his thunderbolts all the time they're striking it. And I was like, well, what's the site? Like, there's all kinds of trees. Why are oak trees more susceptible to lightning strikes than say like pine trees or something else? And I guess it has something to do with their height and with the tree canopy and the root and water system. Like science supposedly has an answer for this, which, you know, I, I don't, it's not, I'm not some sort of tree expert, but all these factors together make it like particularly like a good lightning rod. So, um, I thought that was interesting. And the priestesses, these priestesses were, the Dodona sanctuary was like the second most famous oracle of this time. Obviously the Delphic oracle was the hottest game in town, but if you couldn't get that, you couldn't get a priestess job doing that. You could be a priestess at Dodona, and their names were Promenia, Timorete, and Nicandra, and they were the ones that did all the interpretation of Zeus's oracles in the trees there. So, yeah, that kind of there are probably a million other questions, but that sort of like satisfied some of my initial curiosity. What do you guys think?
One point, I really like this idea of them interpreting the rustling of the leaves, and you call them bronze gongs that made sound, and this is what
Mhm.
this is kind of analogous to what I think the kind of machines that we are building right now, with artificial
Tell me
intelligence.
more. Tell
I mean,
Go on. Tell
well,
me more.
I mean, there's a lot of the people simply don't know how deep learning works. Like deep learning networks, they know they can get the results, but they do not know why does this particular result come from this. They cannot interpret. They cannot predict, like where will this kind of layer form and what kind of information it, because in deep learning tree there are certain nodes in different layers, and then you cannot predict one kind of feature will store itself, because so they accept it themselves to be in the dark about it, so they do not question it. They think it just works. In the results we can get whatever we need, but we cannot predict what's
Oh,
happening in between. So
so do I understand you correctly in the sense that like our the AI tech bros are kind of like the 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 priestesses or the prophets of some sort of divine sanctuary and just like kind of interpreting the will of the thing?
I mean, they
Is that the
have
idea?
an analogous relationship, I think, from what I understand. I mean, yeah, we can find many analogies, but like this kind of privileged position
That's it.
to be able to interpret things that we cannot possibly
Yeah.
know.
Right, because it's you hear every once in a while they'll talk about like, I remember when I was like first waking up and like I really was profoundly affected by the Mandela effect. And I was like, oh, is CERN switching up the timeline with quantum computers? And one of the big videos going around was this guy named Jordy Rose, who is like the inventor of one of the quantum computers. And he always used to talk about like, oh, we're summoning this demon through our computer technology. Like that's a fascinating point. Like, how different is this than us summoning Zeus and having him bang against gongs in a tree?
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it's saying. It's There's so much uncertainties, but you are in a privileged position to interpret it however you want, and like drive the conversation, drive the funding, drive the narrative of what it's doing, however you want. So that's a privileged position in a society. That's what I feel. And if it's happening here and it's happening with us, I mean, even in the film like Minority Report, there are oracles.
Oh
They
yeah.
sit around.
Oh, they have there aren't don't they have like three? Aren't there three like precogs they call
Yeah,
them
they
in
interpret.
Minority? That's fat. Yeah, that's great.
I mean, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, as far who knows? Maybe in like some like bunker somewhere, there's a bunch of precogs in a pool, like driving all of like the AI stuff.
No, I don't
We don't
believe that.
know. Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, I'm open to it. I mean, Philip K. Dick has been right about a lot of stuff.
I mean, yeah, Philip K. Dick, that writer, he comes up so many times in my mind whenever I study any of these phenomena myself, because he talks about. I mean, in my mind, there's an imagery of like us fusing together with whatever we're doing. If we're watching the phones, kind of talks about us slowly becoming part of the phone ourselves, and then, you know, that's what his main kind of motif is, of
Yeah.
his apocalyptic view of technology, that we're kind of fusing into other beings by interacting with these things.
I mean, is the precog idea really that insane? I mean, Elon Musk is putting brain implants in quadriplegic people and they're controlling computers with their minds now. They're like playing video games and stuff. Like
Video
the
games.
the only I guess the only difference between the precog and the neural link people is that the precog supposedly can see into the future. But like I don't know, like what is foresight? I know Jordan will probably have something to say. It's like is it intuition? Is it computer modeling? Is it algorithmic? I mean, if you know, there's lots of like there's lots of probability models that one can create that almost ensure certain outcomes. I guess the thing is like I'm not against the idea of prognostication. Jordan, this feels like something you should weigh in on.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, from a statistical inference, econometrics, machine learning perspective, I think what you said is accurate. And I mean, one can go down the Alison McDowell rabbit hole. You can even just get textbooks where they straight up tell you how they're using wisdom of crowds and how they're using these massive databases to project outcomes. And these models were based on large amounts of data, but we are now in an era where there's infinite data being created, stored, translated constantly. And with that level of data volume, it's hard to imagine you wouldn't have pretty high predictive power in the models that you're running, at least regarding what they have data on, which is human behavior. So if you're trying to project human behavior, we've all willingly given all these signals up. But that's just one lens of predictive power. And we could go very deep into this topic about temporality, all sorts of things, but it is based off of a paradigm that we can predict the future based off of previous behaviors, previous cycles based off of the past, which I think within the context we find ourselves culturally, like that's more or less true. However, I don't think it's necessarily the case when you step out of human time and into more divine time, if you will. I don't necessarily think we are beholden to these patterns that have happened in the past, but there are very few humans, from my observation, who are operating in that way, who are truly able to turn off the programming, even of their own like personal trauma, drama, whatever, and not beholden to those patterns. So that's like one arena, but there's another arena of predictability, predictive power, foresight, psychic ability that's more about telepathy. It's more about feeling into the quantum field itself. And I think that's more of a human capability. So, what we're talking about in the Philip K. Dick world, I think is more machine based, right? It's more artificial intelligence. There's
Well,
another.
not necessarily. I mean,
Okay, that's
they're
fair.
yeah. Have you seen Minority Report?
Yeah, and I've read it. It's been a long
Yeah.
time.
Well,
It's
yeah, I
been a long
figured you
time.
had. Yeah.
But
It's a combination.
when we're talking about like the current tech bro infrastructure, at least what has been revealed to us is artificial intelligence. It's not difficult for me to imagine how you would try to blend human divine intelligence with that artificial intelligence. But I just wanted to bring up this concept that there's two different ways to approach predictions.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And why not try to get the best of both worlds, right? By blending them together. I mean, there's so much of a push for transhumanism. That might be the ultimate point of it,
Mm,
right? Like you said,
yeah,
like,
to merge them.
you know, yeah, I mean, you know, we're given these cell phones, we're given the internet. Like there's a presumably it had to have some big upside. And like you're saying, the data harvesting is huge. Um,
No,
I think we should go.
one aside.
Oh yeah, yeah. We can keep this thought going. I just want to make sure we keep progressing because we're at 40 minutes
I mean, Rick,
almost.
Rick and
Yeah,
Mort,
what? Yeah.
Rick and Morty did a parody of this Minority Report thing, and he did execute what you're talking about. What they did that they're using these precogs to create recommender system for in restaurants. So they'll serve you dishes based on what they think you'll like, and they are using these precogs for that. I mean, it's a silly joke, but that's what they're doing. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, this even goes back to the silly headlines that I had at the beginning. Like, are we anticipating these headlines in some way? So I don't think so. They seem to be responses to us. But what is time? Okay. Um, Next slide. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the sacred wedding of Zeus and Hera. And this is slide 237, one of our favorite numbers. So in Boeotia's Daedala festival, a religious federation of states celebrated the sacred marriage of Zeus and Hera, the oak god and goddess, by crafting oak effigies dressed as the divine couple and parading them in a grand procession. The effigies were burned in a sacrificial ritual to symbolize their union, ensuring fertility and communal harmony. This oak centric ritual tied to Zeus's role as the thunder and rain god reinforces Frazer's theme of the oak's sanctity in Aryan worship. So I was like, where did this whole like ritual of burning like figures of Zeus and Hera come from. And apparently, um, it comes from this particular myth. Zeus wanting to win back Hera after she fled into Euboea in anger, followed Kytharian's advice and crafted a wooden figure, likely an oak Daedala, pretending it was Plautia, a river nymph. That's who's kind of a depiction of who she might have been on the right there, for a fake marriage. Hera, hearing the wedding, rushed over, found the wooden decoy, laughed, and reconciled with Zeus. And according to Pausanias, this inspired Boeotia's Daedala festival, where the oak statuettes are burned. And the reason why they're burned is that it symbolizes renewal and fertility. This is one of the crazier things I've had to try to get my mind around. Is like, I think of fire as like this destructive thing, but clearly in the past, people saw this as a releasing of certain beneficial powers in order to achieve the results that they want in regards to fertility, agriculture, et cetera, et cetera. That's kind of a profound aspect. And for anyone who's curious, Boeotia apparently is a part of central Greece even to this day. I believe it encapsulates Thebes. So just interesting, it's just one of those things that people there probably didn't even understand. Yeah, it's just we just burn the statues. And someone like me is like, why are we burning the statues? Whereas like we've looked at with the with why we throw rice at weddings, like how many people stop to think about where that came from. And I think we pretty effectively showed during one of our earlier explorations that it's traceable back to this psychosexual relationship between humanity and the land, and the marriages in some way parallel the vitality of the crops. And who thinks about that when they're throwing rice at a wedding in America? Nobody. Absolutely no one. Yeah, go ahead, Asik.
I mean, after reading this, this is in Albertina Square. So what I thought about was, okay, Albertina Iceberg Shed, because Albertina is the name of Nicole Kidman's character in the Viennese novel on which the movie is based on. But I really like this idea of reconciliation between the two couples, because that's what happens in kind of happens in Iceberg Shed. Because what Tom Cruise actually does is he kind of visits different versions of his wife, and they're not actually her, but they look like her in a certain way.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's living, but what is it's in the dream story, they're supposed to be like fake manifestations, and like after going through them, he has to come back to his wife. So that kind of reminded me of that, because we use kind of decoys of our own, to kind of connect with the person we truly love. So those decoys, then they're discarded off when we are done with them, when we don't need them. Then so that's what they have burned them. That's what jumped to my mind after listening to what you said.
Jordan, how does this make you feel?
It's interesting. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm. All right. Let's go back to my favorite thing. Space. Space, 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 space. Outer space. Slide 238. This is just to break up the Frazer stuff. I mean, relating back to Frazer. But what I've got here, this is a incredible photograph of Apollo 12 being struck by lightning during its takeoff. Apollo 12 was actually struck by lightning twice in the first minute of its takeoff. And that's like they launched it during a storm. And the reason why I even bring this to our attention, I got to thinking about, we've been talking about all these the lightning striking the oaks, and how this was, a message. These were transmissions from Jupiter and Zeus, and taking this kind of phenomenal physics thing that happened here and thinking about it in relation to interpreting messages as it courses through this cylindrical thing. Um, it made me think about how we were discussing that there seems to be some element of the Titanomachy or the Battle of the Titans in the Apollo program, right? Clear, we talked about this in terms of, we have the Saturn rocket, which is connected to Kronos, and we have the Eagle lander, which, and the Eagle is an alchemical bird of Jupiter. And just to take this another way, you see, we might be seeing something like the struggle between Jupiter and Saturn here, and I just want to marvel at that. Like, just let's just look at these photos in a different way. We have a shrine to Saturn being struck by Zeus's thunderbolt. I mean, is this schizophrenia? I feel like this is a meme. Like, someone should make this into a meme with the guy who's like
No.
looking at like the anime. He's looking at the butterfly, but it's like replaced with the Saturn. This image, and it's like, is this schizophrenia? And it's me.
No, it's a beautiful poem from my end. I mean, that's happening. I mean, I think they would have gotten a kick out of it when that would happen. Oh my, oh wow, it actually happened. So I think that maybe why would they insist on launching it during a storm? I mean, there's so many things can that could go wrong. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
so much money is at
I
stake. Why
look.
would they risk that?
The explanation is that because you got it. Landing on the moon is serious business, and there are certain time windows, and you got to time it just right. And the judgment was made that uh, it was better to launch at that moment to ensure mission success than to delay. Um, but after this happened, because it I think it caused a power failure, and then they were able to get back on. This whole, by the way, Apollo 12 had a bunch of weird stuff happen. Like, they didn't have a television picture for Apollo 12 because, like, Alan Bean like pointed the camera at the sun as soon as he like got off, and it fried out the camera, so that I think they only had audio. It kind of, it foreshadows the calamity of Apollo 13. Like, Apollo 11 went so smoothly, and then you had like some things kind of go haywire in Apollo 12, and then Apollo 13 was a cluster truck. So, um, from my understanding, they didn't do it again for this reason. Uh, Although, if you go to the next slide, Jordan, this is Apollo 15, and you see the lightning bolt in the background, but they never launched during a storm again for this reason. But still, it's there. And I guess, you could say, oh, this is happening, it kind of makes sense. It's the tallest thing around. But yeah, that's the justification, is that if they were going to hit their target, they had to launch at that time, rain or shine. But then they changed the policy after it got struck by lightning twice in the first minute. So,
I mean, when did they launch it then? Like in a few minutes or sometime later?
no, it was launched. The rocket was in the air, had already taken off, and it got hit twice. There were no do-overs. Apollo 12. So it was already off the ground. It got hit at like 32nd second and like the 56th second. I have to go back and put it both within the first minute. So it's not like it was just standing on the launch pad and it got hit. It got hit in the air, which makes it even more insane. I mean, I guess planes get hit by lightning, so it's like not that uncommon. It's not good, but it happens.
So many things need to align for lightning to hit. So it's a rare thing.
I don't know. I'm not a big flyer, so I don't know. I've never been on one that got hit by lightning so far as
You're also like Kubrick. You don't like to fly.
not now.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. I've not been on a plane. God, has it been? It might be 10 years since the last time I was on a plane. I have to think about that. It might be.
I hate
But I
planes.
used to fly all the time.
Oh, okay. I think you studied in Oxford. You
Yeah.
mentioned it last time, so you must be
Yeah.
going back and forth between US and
Uh, not just a couple times. I mean, I it so I didn't do too many. I've not done too many transatlantic flights, but Kubrick had a pilot's license,
yeah. I
and
mean,
he still hated flying. So that raises okay, like what's going on here?
there's, have you read his biography? It says that his friend got killed after a flying accident. As soon as he got
Yeah,
his license and he made his first few flights, his close friends he got killed. And have you seen that the remains of that Russian astronaut, those
yeah.
Soviet? That's what happened. That's what Kubrick saw, and like his camera had survived his friends, so he got very scared. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's he was kind of a paranoid guy actually. People think they're trying to slander him, but he was a very sensitive young man, I should say. And
Well, I think he has some quote. Is he says something? I think he said something along the lines of "If you're not paranoid, you're not paying attention" or something. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
he
yeah.
says something like
If
that.
if you're
So
paranoid,
did
that
he
means
say?
you're saying you that means you're paying attention. That means you know what's going on. He quoted
Yeah,
Burroughs. Yeah, that's what it is.
yeah.
He was a I think he's pretty unique in that lineage. We don't see those kind of people anymore. He was not very flamboyant on the outside. He was not kind of but he was contained within himself, like David Lynch. He's contained within himself, but there's things going on that are flamboyant in nature. But you would not see that from seeing the guy. That's what I really like about the 1940s American people. They're in their stylish coats and everything, and then there's all these weird things going on with Burroughs and everyone. So I really like that idea. I don't like what's going on in the present that people are kind of looking the part. I don't like that. I think you should be discreet.
Have you seen Color Me Kubrick?
I've not seen that with John Malkovich. No, no, I've
You
not
need
seen.
you need to see that. It's it's it stars John Malkovich, and it's based on a true story where um because Kubrick kept such a low profile during his life, like not a lot of people really knew what he looked like while he was alive. And there was this guy, oh God, what was his name? It wasn't John Halliday or something like that. I forget, but he impersonated Kubrick while he was alive, and he went around just telling people that he was Stanley, and he's somewhat of a flamboyant character. And what's so interesting about this, it's a great film. John Malkovich is awesome. And it in some ways it like parallels being John Malkovich, but that's a whole other rabbit trail. But um, what's so fascinating about this is that Kubrick was really influenced by Freud's essay on the uncanny, which involved doppelgangers, which you already alluded to in Eyes Wide Shut, where you see the doppelgangers of Nicole Kidman, the different aspects of her that are perhaps represented in other redheaded women in the film. And even it goes back to Schnitzler and Freud himself, which Freud believed Schnitzler, who wrote Dream Story, to be a doppelganger of himself. And this idea of the doppelganger features rather prominently in Freud's essay on the uncanny. And then it just so happens that Kubrick himself ends up having a doppelganger. He ends up having a man impersonating him, walking around and taking advantage of his stardom. He was like promising people movie roles and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think he was also courting like sexual favors from
Yep.
people. Yeah,
Yep.
that's
That's what
pretty
it's about.
weird.
Yeah.
If his whole reputation would be destroyed if a guy like that exists for you going
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. I highly recommend it. It's a great film. It's a great film. Jordan, have you seen it?
Becoming John Malkovich?
No, no. Uh, uh, Color Me Kubrick
Oh no.
with John
Maybe,
Malkovich.
maybe,
No. All right. We'll watch it.
probably not.
We'll watch it. We'll watch it.
After Inception.
Yeah. After Inception. Okay.
Or the
All right.
synchronicities are just gonna keep continuing.
They're just gonna keep going. They're just gonna keep going. We'll see what interesting ones pop out. I had something to read for this. Oh, Zeus the Descender. So Zeus, revered as the thunder and lightning god, was worshipped as a thunderbolt at Olympia and through a sacrificial hearth in Athens, where priests watched for lightning over Mount Parnes. Greeks consecrated lightning struck spots to Zeus, the descender, building altars for sacrifices. This practice, evident in Athenian inscriptions, ties Zeus's lightning to his sacred oak, reinforcing Aryan worship themes. So, the, this is not only were they interpreting Zeus's will through oak trees and things like that, but wherever Zeus's lightning struck, they would build worship spots. And that got me thinking, seeing the lightning strikes of the Saturn rockets and made me kind of, well, it's like, what are the launch pads and is it kind of hallowed ground? And Jordan, if we could go to the next slide. um I think this is stretchy. I don't think it's good, but there is one example of like hallowed launch pad ground. This is the site of the Apollo 1 fire. Pretty tragic thing that consumed the crew of Apollo 1, which is so intriguing because the captain of the crew was named Virgil Gus Grissom. That name Virgil being, clearly, Virgil as a as a character in Dante and being this like psychopomp is profoundly fascinating to me. Um, but yeah, this is the main Jupiter temple. I guess what I'm trying to say here, I think the Jupiter lightning strike launch pad thing is not super strong, but I think it's a lens worth looking at. But apparently, the main temple of Jupiter on Rome's Capitol Hill, the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus. Apparently, they had lightning strikes there, and that was one. And they did sacrifices, and it was holy ground for that reason. I don't know which came first. If the lightning strike happened there, and they're like, okay, let's build the temple, or the lightning strikes happened at the temple. I'm not that much of an expert, but and that's here on the right. And Frazer tells us ancient Greek kings claiming descent from Zeus and sometimes bearing his name likely mimicked his thunder and rain making powers to benefit or intimidate their people. And we talked a little bit about this legendary character who I think is the same guy, but the legend of Salmoneus reflects these petty rulers in Greece's oak rich highlands, acting as Zeus to ensure land and livestock fertility. And this mirrors Irish and Italian kings personifying Zeus or Jupiter, linking oak worship to divine authority in those traditions. And for a refresher, Salmoneus was a Thessalonian king who imitated Zeus by dragging bronze vessels to mimic thunder and throwing torches to stimulate lightning, claiming divine status until Zeus struck him with a real thunderbolt for his hubris. Um, so, and that's Salmoneus. The only real images we have of him are like on vases and stuff like that. But it got me thinking about the rocket technology. Ossick was talking about supercomputers and AI having some sort of relationship to these sacred groves where like Dodona. But I wonder, there's something very thunderous about the rocket technology, and if that in some ways mirrors um, the Zeus's and Jupiter's power and kind of plays into this Titanomachy narrative that I and others have picked up on in the Apollo missions. So I thought that was interesting. And I guess a question that I had, because you like if the oak is Jupiter's sacred tree, something that was curious to me is like, well, did the Greeks and the Romans like not cut down oak trees? Like, how did they build their civilizations without oak trees? Like, that seems pretty essential for a bunch of different things that they would need. And apparently, the way that they did this is that the oaks that were in the sacred groves were off limits. But outside of that, if they needed to cut down oak trees, they would do like prayers and sacrifices to make sure that it was okay with Zeus slash Jupiter for them to clear the oaks for whatever purposes they need oak trees for. So I thought that was interesting. It's kind of like, I guess, like how like Native Americans, like, so we're told, would like ask like the Great Spirit or something like that if it was okay to kill this animal for sustenance or for clothing or something like that.
You
I
asked
don't
the
know what
deer.
I don't know what I'm talking about, but it sounded
Okay.
a little bit like that, you know? Okay, that's all I have. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that idea isn't unusual to me, to commune with nature before reaping it.
Yeah. Well, getting the question of like what kind of sacrifices, you know, and that's the thing. We'll look at these different permutations of Jupe and Jupiter worship. Jupiter, Zeus and Jupiter, Zeus and Jupiter worship, like in other parts of Asia Minor and Europe as it spread. The the types of sacrifices that were done were different. Sometimes it was birds. Sometimes we lost Ostic for a second. Sometimes it was birds. Sometimes it was white bulls. And as we'll look at the druids, sometimes it was people. So we'll get there in a second, which kind of plays into maybe the whole midsummer conversation we've been having for a little while here. Maybe there is something to that. Should we progress to the next slide? Yeah. So, yeah. So among the Celts of Gaul, Druids revered the oak and mistletoe, conducting sacred rituals in oak groves. They linked tall oaks to their thunder god, Tyrannus, akin to Zeus in Greco-Roman mythology, per Pliny's Natural History, Book 16. In the 3rd century BCE, Celtic conquerors in Asia Minor continued this tradition at Drinamidum, a name meaning sacred oak grove in their language, reflecting the oak's divine power. So, um, Tyrannus, the Celtic thunder god, was linked to sacred oaks and possibly, as I mentioned earlier, sacrificial rituals. Roman sources like Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars describe druids burning large wicker effigies, wicker men filled with animals or humans as offerings, likely to Tyrannus to ensure fertility and divine favor. So that's what I've got here on the left. And as Frazer points out, the word druid originates from the ancient Celtic word druits, meaning oak knower or strong seer. So this is getting to where this whole Wicker Man, and perhaps we can trace that to the Burning Man festival that goes on today. I'm sure we can. Um, what it's connected to. I used to be a big Radiohead head fan, and I'm thinking of that song. Gosh, I can't remember what they've got like a stop motion thing. Hail, is it like Burn the Witch or something like that, where it involves like a Wicker Man at the end? But yeah, the Wicker Man is connected to Zeus worship amongst the Druids. Their version Tyrannus. So I thought that was super fascinating. And then here on the right, we have a Druid priest doing the oak and mistletoe ritual. The Celts of Gaul, particularly the Druids, held the oak and its mistletoe as supremely sacred, performing rituals in oak groves where they cut mistletoe with a golden sickle on the 6th day of the moon, as noted by Pliny in Natural History. Dressed in white, Druids offered 2 white bulls, as I mentioned earlier, as sacrifices beneath the oak, believing mistletoe granted fertility and protection. These rites using oak leaves reinforced the oak's divine role. So I guess maybe that's where this whole kissing under the mistletoe thing comes from. Like this is another druidical practice that we have in our culture. This is traceable back to that, it seems. I don't know why I didn't make that connection earlier. And I guess I should say here that the place, their sacred grove that Drinamidum was also, that wasn't just a religious hub, it was also like kind of their political senate, which is so pretty crazy stuff, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
Ruminations, adumbrations, provocations.
I mean, it's pretty self-evident at this point. I I don't think I have much to say in this. But yeah, I mean, the Wicker Man stuff, that's pretty blatantly influenced by this book, and like you mentioned Julius Caesar's Gallic War stuff, those testimonies.
Yeah. Does anybody
Um,
know anything about Burning Man?
I've heard about it. I'm. It's a music festival, I think. Uh,
Yeah. I've never been, but I know a couple years ago, or maybe it was like 2017, like someone they have this like big effigy they burn there, and like supposedly like somebody like ran into the Burning Man effigy and like incinerated himself during one of the festivals. It's like, what are we doing here?
I mean, this could be trigger warning, but do you think it's connected to what people, some people did, like self-immolation and everything in US? Mr.
Uh,
Aaron Bushnell.
it, that's interesting because like Bush,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
whole burning bush thing. Uh, how am I supposed to talk about this? I mean, by and large, the whole self-immolation thing that happens in the US, I mean, I think it's like something that was like the first time I ever heard about self-immolation was like images that were coming back from Vietnam. They would, I mean, I wasn't alive during Vietnam, but there were like a lot of Buddhist monks that would set themselves on fire to protest the war or the occupation, whatever. I think I've been seeing a lot more of it, or not a lot more. There's just been a couple of high profile cases like here in America over the past 5 years or so. It's, I mean, what I don't know anything about this Bushnell character. Why did he do it? Like to protest Trump or something?
he was protesting the complicity in
Oh, and like in the
Palestine.
Palestinians.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the
Um,
Burning Man thing, there's nothing. Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate. Uh, I don't know I have anything to say on this matter, really. We could progress to the next slide. Uh,
yeah. I mean, we can go into, I mean, I'm not, look, there's like, I try to tiptoe around this stuff, but like, are these rituals going on in the media? That's the big question, right? Like, and what does it mean for something to go on in the media? Like, is there some sort of energetic harvest or something? I'm not set up on this. I try to tap dance around what I'm trying to say with this stuff anyway. So, okay. This is pretty cool. Isn't learning fun, kids? Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't teach this in school.
No.
That's true.
What if they did? What if they did teach this in school?
Maybe it wouldn't be like that though. Like it's like that because we have programming that is getting dissolved. But if you don't have that initial programming, maybe it isn't so
Yeah, I mean,
crazy.
yeah, I mean, if you were taught this stuff in school, maybe you too could use your mind to control news headlines.
Yeah, why not? Meditate,
Yeah.
kids. 20 minutes a day.
All right.
I mean,
Oh, what were you going to say, Ostic?
what one thing I remember, I think we talked about the Charter Oak incident. Do you know anything about that?
What incident?
The
Which
Charter
incident?
Oak incident in Connecticut. There was a the rights of man. I think When I was researching iceberg shit, I came upon something like that. Like in Hartford, Connecticut, there's a tree, and then on that's an oak tree, and then there was some sort of an attack on whatever settlers that were settled there, and they created this charter of like we occupy this land and we have these rights and everything, and then they hid it under in an oak tree. So that is what like that was the first thing that was written down that this is supposed to be America. So I was studying it with respect to Ice Burchett because he's William Hartford. So I said, okay, Hartford, what's in Hartford? Oh, Hartford is a city. It's in Connecticut. And then there's this inception of the entire country. That's what happened there in the 1600s or something. I think it happened.
I'm not. I mean, it sounds believable. I'm not familiar with that particular incident. I'm not big on. Uh, I'm not a historian in the traditional sense, but I've studied more history now than I ever did. But um, I mean, but this does offer, and maybe Jordan knows about it. Um, but what this does dovetail nicely with a point, like right, like that incident may be a further instantiation of like what is very clear to me, a Jupiterian alignment of our country. Like our national bird is the eagle, right? Like our national tree is the oak. Like why? Why? Like why? And there's like all these other symbols. And then you look at like Nazi Germany, like they we'll look here in a little bit, like the swastika was originally associated with the Zeus in Lithuania, and it was, appropriated by the Nazis. And the swastika was like associated with like thunder and lightning. It's like a thunder cross. And, the Nazis had the eagle as well. So when you see like the iron eagle holding a swastika, these are like Jupiterian symbols, and our country has them too. Like what like what's going on here? Like what's happening? Do, does anybody want to weigh in? I mean, okay, so like we've got this Jupiter imagery. Like what are we doing? What are we doing?
I mean, they've they've kind of picked it up artificially. I don't think oak is some sort of naturally occurring tree in US, is it? Is it something that you find
Oh, we
everywhere?
have a lot of oak trees. Yeah, we got a
Okay,
lot of oak trees. I
maybe it
don't know
is,
if it's
and
the
um,
I mean, oaks are cool. We have all kinds of trees. I mean, I love a good oak tree. I don't know if it's my favorite tree. It's probably top 5. I like
I mean,
yeah, I don't know. I like
they're,
dogwoods. Those are cool.
they were very intentional with the symbolism uh, in the beginning, I think, with George Washington and everything. Because
Oh yeah, he chops down the cherry tree. That's right. Yeah, we have this chop. This probably gets into the whole Jack and the Beanstalk thing. Did you guys watch that video I sent you? The history of
No,
the
not
Jack
yet.
and the Beanstalk. Oh, watch that. But I'll talk about Jack and the Beanstalk later. But yeah, this whole like chopping down trees is like huge. You've got one on the screen here of Saint Boniface chopping down the Geismar tree. I think is what it's called. I'll
Yeah.
get into that in a second.
I hesitate to bring it up, but Paul Bunyan.
Right. Yeah. Oh, do you want to tell that story?
I think you've told it before somewhere, but
Okay.
yes, I didn't know
Yeah,
who that
Paul
was.
Bunyan.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's always this tree chopper somewhere in the foundation of a thing. Like what's going on there? Anyhow, um, so on the right in this particular slide, we have Donar, which I guess is maybe also is like a Marvel character, or maybe this is Thor. I don't know my Marvel comics. Ancient Germans revered the oak as sacred to their thunder god, Donar, which is also Thor, who is equated with Jupiter, with a famous oak near Geismar called Donar's Oak. Donar, like Zeus and Jupiter, ruled thunder, lightning, rain, and crops, linking oak worship to fertility. And as you guys both probably already know, the word Thursday we get from Thunar's Day, It reflects this Jupiter connection. And then even the word thunder we get from Thor and Donar, Thunder, Thunar. I'm not some crazy etymologist, but I think you can pretty much see the connection there. And then on the left, as mentioned, we have Saint Boniface, who is born Winfrith around 675 CE in England, was a missionary spreading Christianity in Germanic lands. Around 723 CE, he famously chopped down a sacred oak near Geismar, Hesse, called Donar's Oak, dedicated to the Germanic thunder god Donar. Per Willibald's Life of Boniface, Boniface felled the tree before a pagan crowd to prove Christian dominance, and when no divine retribution came, many converted. He used the oak's wood to build a chapel, symbolizing Christian triumph, mirroring the oak's sacred role as a divine conduit. So he's like, I'm going to build a church out of this tree and show you that my God is boss. And it worked. People were like, oh, we should become Christian now. Pretty metal story, if you ask me. I mean, imagine just go up with an axe and chop down these Sylvan people's tree that they're worshiping or interpreting, and you're outnumbered presumably, and then you go and you build a church with their tree, and they're like, "No, we're with this guy."
I mean, whatever's power people shift their alliances, I think they were becoming more powerful in the region.
I'm not some expert. Maybe he wasn't outnumbered. I don't know what the demographics were, but at least from this image, it looks like he's outnumbered. Like, I don't know how, I mean, just you go up to their most sacred spot and chop it down, and you're like, okay, you're with me now.
Ah,
I think it's a pretty crazy story.
yeah. And there's a lot of things that goes on with this. People, I mean, especially in India, there's a lot of negative connotations with converting people. So that's
Converting them to what?
to any other religion, converting, because
Anyone
Islam
that
and
any other.
Christianity, they're still seen as the same thing because they were the religions that offered conversions. You could not convert in Hinduism. So Hinduism is not like a religion that goes out and converts people. So that's what it was. So people have like different associations with these kind of stories. They tell, oh, these people, they came in Goa, and then there was this Inquisition, and then they tortured poor people, and then they force them to convert. Those kind of stories, they run around in our country, and in the right wing circles, I should say.
So
Just that.
there's a pretty big Catholic community in India, isn't there?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There
Yeah.
is.
I think Paul,
Saint
like
Thomas was the
Paul,
first. Yeah, Saint Thomas. He was the person who came in India, the
St.
apostle.
Thomas came. Oh, was it Thomas?
Yeah.
Not Saint. Yeah, Tom, the twin. Yeah. Okay. Let's get crazy. Let's get crazy. We on 243, Jordan? You got my airplane up there?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Actually, this isn't that.
I'm gonna be right
This
back.
is okay. Yeah, just mute yourself. Yeah, this isn't that crazy. Um, so I mentioned this earlier. Among the Slavs, the oak was sacred to Perun, their thunder god, akin to Zeus and Jupiter, with a statue at Novgorod holding a thunderstone symbolizing his power. Now, I couldn't find an image of that, but I did find this marker that is Perun here on the right. A perpetual oak wood fire honored Perun, with attendants facing death if it extinguished, underscoring his supreme status as the lightning making lord per Procopius. This oak centric worship involving oxen sacrifices mirrors Aryan thunder god rituals. And then we have Perkunas here in the middle. who's the Lithuanian thunder and lightning god, akin to Zeus and Jupiter. It was worshipped with oaks and perpetual oak wood fires, which, when extinguished, were relit by sacred wood friction. Men offered sacrifices to oaks for crops, women to lime trees, because I guess they worshiped a different goddess in those lime trees. And during droughts, communities sacrificed black animals and poured beer on fires in oak groves to summon Perkunis's rain. And I mentioned this earlier, but in Baltic mythology, Perkunis, the Lithuanian thunder god, is linked to the swastika, known as the thunder cross or fire cross. And this ancient symbol, it predated the Nazi use, and it represented lightning, fire, and Perkunis's power, appearing on ritual objects and artifacts tied to sacred oaks. And so on the left here, we have the Latvian Air Force using a maroon swastika on a white background as a symbol from 1918 to 1940. And this reflects Perkunas, the Baltic thunder god. So I just thought that was wild. When you find an image like this, you're like, oh, this is a Nazi uh, airplane. No, it was not. Latvian. And just paying homage to
Is it really
Perkunas. It's
actually Latvian airplane?
yep.
Okay, that okay. I thought the Nazis appropriated that. Okay, that's pretty cool.
No,
That's
that's
pretty cool.
theirs. That's
Yeah.
I mean, I think it is. I think it is. I mean, I'm just going by what I'm not some like expert on this stuff. I'm going on something I pulled off the internet. So fact check me. I mean, that's my
I mean,
understanding of what we're looking at here.
it's relieving to know that they have picked up the symbol from Lithuania and not India, because they've been telling everyone, "Oh, this is a symbol from India. It means peace and prosperity."
Well, let me say I would say probably they picked up that symbol from a variety of different places. Where the actual source of inspirations from, it may be from India, and we just have sort of this intellectual convergence. I'm just not convinced that the Nazis weren't somehow mixed up in Jupiterian worship,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
would
yeah, yeah.
connect it
It actually
to
connects. The symbol SS itself, it's lightning bolt.
sure.
Yeah, and
That was one of the that was one of the craziest things when I started like doing deep research like a long time ago. And you see how pervasive the swastika is or was prior to Hitler. I remember like I found like old photographs from like the early probably like 1915, 1918, 1920s, 1930s of Native American tribes in America, like playing, like they would on the reservations and whatnot, they'd be playing like basketball or hockey or something like that, and they would have swastikas on their jerseys. And I was like, what is going on here? Like that was like a really crazy discovery. I mean, it's just why it kind of the fact that it was so widespread really does kind of, I guess, maybe speak to not only like the natural migration of an idea, like we're looking at here with the spread of Jupiter worship or Zeus worship throughout Aryan culture. And by Aryan culture, we just mean people who can, we're not talking about Hitler race theory. We're talking about, people who have a shared culture that goes back to these mythologies. Um, the fact that it could spread by like just migratory practices, but also it's like springing from the human mind. Like, you know, like this is a symbol kind of like engraved on the psyche of people.
I really love that to know it's so ancient. I mean, I also one of my potential areas of interest is actually the precursor to Nazi Germany and where they actually found these motives for themselves. I mean, I'd been thinking about the theosophy, and you talked about Rudolf Steiner. These were actually players. They were actually very active and influential intellectuals during that time in Weimar Germany, I think in the 1920s. So that is what I was very interested in, learning more about, like where are they getting these strange ideas. And like they had their own astronomers, like Hitler had his own personal astronomer who would, like, astrologer, not astronomer, who would advise him when to do this, when to do that. And then they were very tuned in to all these things. I'm kind of thinking about where all is it coming from. Like, is it coming from the
Right. Well,
Golden Bough?
I've got an answer. I've got an answer for you on that. Jordan, can you pull up this link? If anyone's interested in the subject, I've put it in the chat. The text that Jordan's going to pull up here, this is one of the most authoritative books on the subject. It's called The Occult Roots of Nazism. It was written by an NYU professor. I think his name is Nicholas Goodrich Clark. And it is so scholarly, and so it goes so deep into all the different folk religion, the occult, these theosophical characters that you're speaking of, and how that they filtered into the ideology of Nazism. I read this. It was a riveting read, and it's like it's unlike, I think, a lot of Beatty. Like there's a lot of like salacious Beatty material out there, like that's kind of watered down for like a History Channel kind of audience. This is like serious scholarship. So if you want to know more about it, I can't say I remember a lot. I don't remember a lot about the books I read, but I remember being highly impressed by it. And I made a few notes, and maybe I'll circle back around to it in my research, but for right now, it's all Carl Jung for the foreseeable future, and Frazer. So get this book. Good book. Look at that rating. Almost 5 stars. It's dense. Okay. Ostic, did you have anything else to say about that before we get into the wilder things? If this concludes the serious scholarship part of the presentation. Okay, you're all muted. Okay, I'm just going to talk.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I'm like,
This,
I'm
this was
throwing
pretty
me a
good.
bone, guys. I gotta come up. We're doing like a show here.
No, this was pretty good. This was pretty
No
good.
dead air. No dead air ever.
Yeah, I'm just looking at how much content is left. So
Oh yeah, there's a lot.
a
All right.
lot.
What it look? Well, it's 6:06. We're making okay time.
Mhm.
Like, all right, let's just go. We'll evaluate here at the 2-hour mark. Okay. So, last time I pointed out that Jung talks about this Wotan archetype in regard to Hitler, but I was like, well, where does he talk about a Jupiterian archetype, if he does talk about it at all? This slide right here, if you want to screenshot it, go ahead and do that. There's at least 3 places: psychological types, symbols of transformation, archetypes in the collective unconscious. In general, I think the idea is that Jupiter is associated with disruption of the status quo and the restoring of a different order. Okay, which is going to be relevant to some of the things that we've talked about earlier with the Titanomachy and with Trump. And if you have been following along, I've been kind of like playing detective and trying to find these like Jupiterian symbols with Trump. So if we can go to 245, I found 2 new ones, or 3 new ones, depending on how you want to count it. Are we at the pre-ceremony there? 245?
With Trump?
There we
Yeah.
there you go. Okay. So this one got past me, mainly because probably at the time that it happened in 2018, it didn't seem that significant to me. But what we have here, this is crazy. So like in Trump's first term, Macron, who, if you pay attention to world events, at least he did at about this time, he was constantly referring to himself as being like Jupiter. You can see this is a French magazine, Le Ponte, where he's where they're analogizing him to Jupiter. I don't know exactly what that says, Jupiter a l'Elysée or whatever. But there was this comment that Macron made saying like, "Oh, journalists can't understand me because my thoughts are Jupiterian" or something like that. He was constantly analogizing himself to Jupiter, and so then he brings this oak tree from France, where like apparently a lot of American World War One soldiers died. He brought it to America to plant on the White House lawn, and him and Trump with their golden shovels. Look at this. With their golden shovels, go and they plant this oak tree. And the way that this um, photo is framed, it almost looks like Melania is like the dryad in the tree, right? Like it kind of reminds me of those Gottlieb engravings that we were looking at earlier with the Dodona Sanctuary, right? I'm not, and it maybe this is completely coincidental, or maybe these are cosmic forces aligning to communicate something to us. And this wasn't the only oak tree, and maybe this is just like something that is just not that significant. We're reading too much into it, but Melania also planted her own oak tree. You can see her walking out there in her high heels and another golden shovel and planting one. So this is, this is pretty. I didn't think to search for oak trees in Trump. And what was so interesting about this one that he planted with Macron is that it, like in like 2000, like shortly thereafter, they took the oak tree into quarantine because apparently there was like some issue with like it being eaten by moths or something like that. I don't know the exact circumstances, but they put it in like a storehouse to prevent it from being eaten, and it died in quarantine. And so this incredibly symbolic tree of Jupiter, which was given to Trump, died in quarantine. And then of course, like, then COVID happens and quarantine happens, and the Trump presidency kind of dies as a result of handling of COVID and other issues. And what was so funny is that Macron, who got this symbolic tree, sees himself as a symbol of Jupiter, said to people who were like talking about this tree dying in quarantine, he says, Mr. Macron said people should not read symbols into everything. He told Swiss public broadcaster RTS, "We will send him another. It is not a tragedy. It turns out that this oak was put in quarantine for American sanitary reasons, and the poor thing did not survive." So, I mean, I don't know how you could not see something hyper symbolic in this, but again, maybe this is just me seeing connections where there aren't any. I just found this, it's just one more piece of evidence about Trump being associated with Jupiter. So, do you guys have any responses to this? I mean, what do you think?
This is right on, man. This is they're not even hiding it anymore. This is this is it. I really like
I
this.
mean, I don't know if they're not even hiding it. I don't even know if they're in the argument I've been trying to make through this is that Trump is like possessed by a Jupiterian archetype. And I don't mean this like he's like in terms of like demons. I'm not trying to see he's like the Antichrist or anything like that. Just in a Jungian sense, there are archetypal forces that can overwhelm the ego, and we can all, you know, have these energies coursing through us at any time. But it seems like Trump is especially associated with Jupiter. And I don't know what it means. Like, the tree dying, and then Trump gets the second. Maybe this is like a further like narrative element of the Titanomachy, like Zeus ultimately overcoming Saturn. I don't know, but it's pretty crazy. But maybe it's just like common for presidents to plant oak trees on the lawn. But then, like, why is that common? And why is our tree the oak? And why is it associated with Jupiter? Like, where does it? Yeah, it's just like, what level of
That
explanation are you okay with?
that's they know. I don't know. I think they know what they're doing with this one.
You think?
They're
I
deliberately
mean,
golden shovels, man.
the
Just
golden shovel,
that's
the golden shovels, yeah,
this is
yeah.
very
especially
blatant.
since yeah, especially since Macron is obsessed with Jupiter, it would be hard. And then Macron is obsessed with Jupiter, and then he tells people don't read anything into
He's I didn't know this about Macron. I thought he was some kind of a simpleton. I mean, now I see him in a different light.
I mean, maybe he's given up on this whole Jupiter symbolism. Like, it's not like I follow French politics. I remember I knew this at the time because it seemed I followed the 2016 election very closely, and it seemed to me that Le Pen was going to win in France, and then just from the American media I was consuming, and then Macron seemed to kind of come out of nowhere and win. I don't even understand how their politics works, but I I was like, how is this happening? It seemed like Le Pen had this in the bag, and then this guy I'd never heard of won.
Yeah, I mean, he's also supposedly connected to the Rothschild Bank. He's supposedly a banker before joining the
I don't
politics. He was in a
I
French
don't know.
Rothschild Bank. Yeah, he was.
You know, Candace Owens is makes Macron popular over here. I don't. That's about the only thing I hear about in these days. Jordan, do you want to weigh in on this?
I think the imagery is really fascinating to me, and I don't think any images that come out of the White House are an accident. To have access to be taking these photos and releasing them. You know, I think all of this is pretty curated, as is all of our media, but I would say especially at this level. And so I am also just very struck by the image with Melania behind the tree, even the way she's
Yeah.
standing. She almost has this like cloak. Um,
Oh
yeah, she,
yeah, yeah, she does, doesn't she? It does kind of
uh-huh.
look like it kind of looks like a priestess or like a priest robe. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's not hooded, but it has kind of the shape of that type of wardrobe. It's super fascinating. Yeah.
that's good. I like that. Good insight.
I'm just agreeing.
No, no, but that's good. That's a worthwhile insight. I didn't even notice. I didn't even think about her as like a dryad until after I did the podcast with Heidi, or I thought about it on the fly with Heidi. And I was like, just she kind of seems merged with the tree.
Well,
So
and
I mean,
similar to the photography, her fashion choices in particular are never a mistake, is my
oh yeah,
assumption. I mean, what leaders wear in general is very coded. It's not unique to her, but I do think like there's been a heightened spotlight specifically on her and her
you know
ability
what?
to convey messages through her fashion.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what this is reminding me of now that we're talking about it? It's reminding me of the sacred marriage uh, ritual that we talked about earlier with Zeus and Hera and the wooden figurines that they burned. The fact that both Trump and Melania planted oak trees, it seems to be tapping into that now that I mean we don't have these little oak figurines that they're going to burn, but the fact that they both did it around the same time, I it's like that kind of feels like that. That feels right. Did I say Dodona? I meant to say Boeotia. I hope I said Boeotia.
Mm.
Cool. Yeah, we'll have to find Jim Watson and ask him. Jim Watson, did you read The Golden Bough? Did you intentionally frame Melania as a triad, as a tree spirit? I'll probably find him on Twitter and ask him.
You mentioned that her fashion choices are never a mistake. Like, could you give an example?
Oh yeah, I mean Jordan could probably do it, but the ones that first come to mind for me is she had some like uh big jacket said "Do you even care?" or something like that she was spotted in, and she kind of dressed like Carmen Sandiego or something like that at the pyramids. I'm sure Jordan has some other examples. Um,
I think one that got a lot of attention was the second Trump inauguration.
ooh, I
There
was thinking
were
the
a
first.
lot of layers to it. I think there was more of the aesthetic. visual, obvious layer, but when you start to investigate Ostic, what designers made different pieces, the symbolism has a lot of depth.
The first inauguration, she dressed in like Tiffany blue, which was like a total callback to like JFK. So, right. Yeah, I don't know if you recall that. You're muted, but um yeah. Like fashion is like a form of communication in these circles.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, we could totally derail on that.
yeah, we could.
But Ostic, maybe I could just send you some examples in our group chat.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if there is so much Jupiterian symbolism with Trump, it stands to reason that there should be all kinds of symbolism for Melania being associated with Hera,
Mhm,
you know? But I just don't know her symbols. I haven't done that sort of deep dive.
mhm. Yeah. I mean, there's so much, like,
Yeah, look at this stuff.
um
Yeah, that Tiffany blue there. I forget how that reference. I don't know if that's an I forget that if she's alluding to Jackie O in that. I forget. But yeah.
yeah, it's not top
Yeah.
of mind.
Oh, and like she like dressed like Saturn here for the second
Yes,
inauguration.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
she looks like kind of like the Grim Reaper almost, which
Yeah.
and it was very bizarre.
Yeah, you really couldn't see her eyes most of the time. This hat is an American designer. When I looked up his Instagram, the first image was a bunch of rabbits.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I was spiraling out about
Yeah, you could.
all of
You really
this
could. Yeah.
at the
Can,
time.
just maybe show that. Could you pull up that? Do you know that jacket I'm talking about where she's like said, "Do you even care?" or something? Just so I
Yeah.
can. Yeah, like she turned her back on like reporters and what does it say?
Um,
Really don't care, do you?
I really don't care, do you? Yeah, I really don't
Yeah.
care.
And so for
Do
like
you?
weeks, like for weeks, like the American media was like trying to interpret this message, but they kind of suck at cryptography.
Yeah. I think too, like there's just a lot in the fashion world to go down. I mean, a lot of first lady fashion is referencing prior iconic moments or designers or ripping on it.
Or
I
Greek
mean,
mythology.
yeah, I mean, yeah, but fashion in general is like there's a whole conversation constantly happening within that sphere, and I think like everything there's subconscious, there's conscious lifting of symbols and expressions of archetypes.
Mhm.
But yeah,
That's just
like
a
that's
smattering. Yeah.
yeah, we could go on and on and on.
Okay. I got one more for Trump boy.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can go to the next slide.
sure.
It's a simple one.
Titans.
Yeah. So like I don't know if this is just like what newspapers do. They like, oh, we're really bored, so let's just keep recycling the same template over and over again. Like I didn't do some deep dive, but like something that they all seem to get on the same page about is to talk about Trump in regards to the Battle of the Titans or the Titanomachy. Especially there was like, and this is even recently in July, they were like Trump v. Murdoch is an odd battle of Titans. Like, what? What are we talking about? Like, so I guess Trump is Jupiter and Murdoch is Saturn. But then also, you know, they had this theme when there was the fallout between Trump and Elon, another battle of the Titans scenario. But maybe this happens like all the time. But so it requires a little bit of a contextualization. But I thought it was interesting that they're just outright associating Trump with the Battle of the Titans, and I guess that would mean he's Jupiter because he kind of wins whatever he does, you know. So okay, all right. So we're getting into the Jungian backlog of the Apollo missions. So the so numbers are huge, but not in like this like gematria way, but like I think from Rudolph Otto has this book called The Idea of the Holy, where he talks about the numinous, and Jung was really influenced by that. And Jung talks about numbers in kind of a numinous way. And as we were digging into this, the number 12, we talked about this like in regards to the 12 apostles, the 12 moonwalkers, the knights of the round table, the 12 stars that are on Mary's head in Revelation 12. This number 12, 12, 12, 12, like what's going on with 12? Not to mention that 12 got struck by lightning. That's interesting as well. Apollo 12. So this number 12 keeps coming up, and people always go, "Oh, don't read anything into it. It's not significant." But Jung, um, in works like Synchronicity and Acausal Connecting Principle and Psychology and Alchemy, regards the number 12 as a sacred archetype symbolizing completeness, wholeness, and cosmic order, often emerging from the collective unconscious as a multiple of the quaternity, representing structured integration and cycles of time, such as the 12 zodiac signs, months, or apostles surrounding Christ, evoking numinosity and mystery in mythological and alchemical contexts. Interpreting the moon landings in this way, the 12 moonwalkers embody this archetype of wholeness. Their journey to the lunar great mother, symbolizing the unconscious and anima, forming a complete cycle of heroic exploration and return, fostering psychic renewal, perhaps amidst Cold War fragmentation. That's why we might have needed this. Much like the 12 apostles witnessing Christ's transformation, or zodiac cycles marking cosmic harmony, fulfilling humanity's need for archetypal unity in a demythologized era. So I thought that was pretty profound. That the number 12 is a cycle of completion. And I think this raises a very interesting question is like, does that mean it's over and it's done? And like partly feeds into this idea of like why we can't go back, haven't gone back. We talked about not going back because of the Artemis symbolism and receptivity. It doesn't really have the same sort of conscious conquering symbolism of Apollo and solar consciousness. But maybe it's just like the cycle is done and it's represented here with these starmen. Just a thought, but it's interesting.
I mean, you said that these people are not going anymore. And like, is there some
They're
kind of,
try they're trying to go. They're trying to go. They've got this whole art. They're trying to go with this Artemis program, but it keeps getting delayed.
yeah, I mean, there could be some sort of a bigger calendar that they're following. You know, after these supposedly this kind of these 40, 50, 60 years, the calendar will reset and then we'll send 12 again. Then after 60 years, 12 again, that kind of thing. Do you think that's part of?
Maybe.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean that's the idea, right? Like we looked at those quotes at the very beginning of the presentation. It's that all of human history could be wiped out, and then it's just going to repeat because this is how the psyche works, how the collective unconscious works. So maybe, you know, I mean, it's not like the space program ended in 1972. It kept going.
I mean,
Um, where we're going is up in the air. Are we going to Mars? We're going to the moon. We go to the moon, then Mars. Like I don't know what we're doing. I get confused.
the
What are we
generation,
doing?
uh, yeah, the generational thing is very significant, I think, with people because what they actually have a surety of that people would keep coming, they'll keep coming. So they'll have to, renew that whatever they did. So I think that's what they want to do. I mean, I think from this quote from Lenin, he said that you give us one of our generation, one you give us one generation, then you wouldn't need to give us anymore because that one generation will keep teaching the upcoming generations about what we have taught them. We need only one generation of people that are educated under our system, you know. So I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to kind of like do the generational things, once in a generation. Okay, in your generation this will be the canon event because people that they were who were like in their 20s or 30s when this happened, they've all, I think, died. Maybe they're in the 80s, I think 80s and 90s. So uh, they need to renew this festival or this whole scenario.
Yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of people who are alive who saw this happen on TV. Um, and once they pass away, who knows what happens after that? Um, something, something. I just recalled here. We've been talking about the Battle of the Titans, and I just connected it right now. We talked about the 12 apostles, the 12 zodiac signs, the 12 months. Guess how many Olympians there were on Mount Olympus? The answer is 12.
Yeah,
The
I
answer
was
is
gonna say.
12. Yeah. So I need to think about this. I forgotten about this, but it was Zeus, Hera, Poseidon, Demeter, Hestia, Aphrodite, Athena, Apollo, Artemis, Ares, Hephaestus, and Hermes. So that's, I mean, clearly, if the Battle of the Titans is like part of this narrative, the the different Olympian gods is part of this too. I mean, we found Jupiter in the story with the eagle. We clearly know Apollo. We clearly know Artemis. But like, and we've talked about where Hera maybe, but where's Poseidon? Where's Demeter? Where are they in this cosmic story? I think that might be something I look into in the future.
I mean,
They've
Hal
got to be
was,
somewhere.
yeah.
They're somewhere in there. It's freaking Where's Waldo?
Um, uh, in 2001, in the earlier drafts, Hal was actually a female
Yes,
computer. He
named
was called
Athena.
Athena. Yeah.
Yep,
So
named Athena.
maybe
Yeah,
there's
pretty
some sort of
crazy, huh?
relationship between Apollo and Athena. I'm not sure. Have you read about it?
Yeah, I forget. What is the relationship? I'd have to look it up. Maybe Jordan can do that. I'm sorry, I'm bossing Jordan around on here today. Um,
Between
they're
Athena
half
and who?
Apollo.
Okay, yeah.
They're
They're
both children of
siblings.
Zeus. They're half siblings. Yeah,
Yeah.
half sibling. And there's also, I'll look into the mythology of it. No romantic connection.
If they're half
No,
siblings, they're
they're
supposed to be like um half of a potential whole. Is it
mhm.
supposed to be like that? I'm
They
not
are
sure.
described that way, which is kind of how people describe like twin flames today, which can have a romantic connotation, but I don't think that's
Well,
not what
I'm
they're talking
thinking
about
of in
here,
terms
but
of like they were supposedly whole once and then they were
exactly.
cut off and then now they're
Well,
different.
that's
That
that's that's now we're talking Plato, and we're talking the Symposium, and we're talking about how he believed that human beings were once hermaphroditic, fused together, and split. That's maybe I'm not some expert, but that was his theory on human beings, the whole soulmate, better half idea. But
So
maybe,
we're conflating a few different concepts.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. But I don't know these things well enough to know that they aren't connected. So it's like one of those things where I'm like, Mr. Professor, like, no, 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 don't do that. Like, this is where they're really from. And then if I were to go deeper into it, I'd be like, you were right to begin with. And I was wrong. That's probably how this is going to go. If I dig into it, like, probably it's going to turn out that your initial instinct was correct.
I was thinking about is in terms of like splitting the psyche in some way. So if the half siblings, so they're supposedly estranged from one another now, but they're still connected. I was thinking in terms of Hal, the relationship between Hal and David is supposedly Apollo. So
Yeah,
there's
that does recast that relationship, right? Because Dave is a bowman, right? He's Dave Bowman, and he's an
Mhm.
archer, a bowman, and Apollo is an archer, right? He's got his golden arrows, and Artemis is an archer too. She has silver arrows.
That's
I'll
right.
look into it
Yeah,
later.
I will too. I will too. Okay,
And the
let's go.
sigils, I mean, this
Oh,
is from the astrology coursework I've been going through with Austin Coppock, but he describes the sigil for the sun as a target that you are shooting at, which is
interesting. That is
Apollo.
interesting.
And you have the moon, which is usually the sigil is a crescent moon. And he says you can think of that as like the bow itself that is
Mm,
being shot from.
that's really interesting. That's really interesting. The do I have it right? Like it's like a dot in the middle of a circle. It's like
Yep.
black and white, and there's like a larger dot.
Yep.
I think that's also like a symbol for God too.
There's
Or
many layers to it. Yeah. And the self, which also is kind
right,
of the monolith, right? The
right.
monolith is the symbol of the self, but also God.
Well, I was going to say mandala.
That's true as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Kubrick does say that the monolith the is like a God concept. He does say that somewhere in an
Right.
interview.
And when Jung talks about the monolith, it has like both aspects of it's symbolizing God, but it's also symbolizing self.
Yeah,
And when you look at the sun's sigil, it kind of has a similar like quality to it.
yeah. No, that's big. That's relevant. We should go deeper into that one day. Let's do a couple more. We've been at this for 2 hours. I want to cover this one because I didn't get to it last time. You know, we're looking at all these different symbols that are involved in the Apollo program. We can't not address the Ouroboros that's part of the original NASA logo. Like they say, this is a comet. A lot of like truther people say, "Oh, this is a serpent, and this red chevron is the tongue of the serpent," and you know, never a straight answer stuff. I'm not really concerned with that. I'm above it all. I'm interested in the symbolism. Um, the the we haven't. I mean, it's pretty clear that this is an Ouroboros, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And you know, this was the logo that NASA had like in 1959 during the Apollo missions. But Young actually has stuff to say about the Ouroboros archetype, and he Young views the Ouroboros as the self's wholeness, uniting opposites, life and death, masculine and feminine, and cyclical renewal, reflecting alchemical transformation and divine authority. And also, as I mentioned already, um, Jung talks about Apollo as a symbol. He is the sun god as consciousness, rationality, and ego striving, posing the lunar unconscious's feminine depths, integrating opposites for individuation. And I want to look at some of the quotes on the screen here. I've bolded the ones that are there's lots of them, but these are the four that jumped out at me the most. But the other ones pretty much are reiterations of this. Perhaps others have better. You may like other phrasings of them. You might find them more poetic, but I thought these were great. The Ouroboros is a symbol of the opposites united in the circle. That's from Mysterium Conjunctionis. And from Aeon, he says, the dragon that devours, fertilizes, and gives birth to itself. And then in regard to Apollo, um, the sun symbolizes the source of consciousness, the light of the ego, which is why gods like Apollo, Helios, or Mithras are associated with it. And that's from the archetypes in the collective unconscious. And then from symbols of transformation, the sun hero, such as Apollo, represents the striving of consciousness to rise above the unconscious, yet he must return to the maternal night for rebirth. And I guess why this is like so important is it seems like from the work we've been doing so far, if we understand the sun, Apollo, to be the solar consciousness, to be the ego, and the moon to be the lunar unconsciousness, the receptive principle, we have these opposites that are being integrated. And that seems to with the NASA logo with this Ouroboros, it's foreshadowing that. And perhaps that's the real purpose for this cosmic event. And do I would Young have seen this, like this? I don't know. I don't know. I could be so far afield here, but it's like it's lining up. It's really lining up kind of perfectly. So
Yeah,
anywho,
it does.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I think it makes it hard. I think it's hard to argue that like I'm reaching on this.
no, it's this it just works. I think there's a lot of similar things that goes on in different cultures, and they're no different. I mean, uniting the opposites. People talk about. They've been talking about this for so long. You know, like we talk about Hegelian things. Thesis and antithesis. We are like the uniting
Mhm.
the opposite, something like that. It's kind of like the problem that we have, the squaring the circle. You know, it's a classic motif, and I think it fits pretty well with what you mentioned with the sun and the moon and uniting the opposites. I think it also works out in the motif of the eclipse. People talk about the eclipse and everything, and there's the sun and moon, they're meeting together. So that's the uniting of the opposites. That's why these events, they're like very anticipated by some people.
Well, this gets into, some of the celestial symbolism that we see at the beginning of 2001, perhaps, with at the dawn of man scene with the with I I I I mean, I
There's
think
a
we have the
moon and a
su
sun. There's at the same time. Yeah.
yeah, and now that I haven't thought about it since we started talking about this, but going backwards, like, I've been trying to figure out what that alignment is about, and maybe it's this.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. I mean, but would it be fair for him to add so many layers? But yeah, he's referencing Nietzsche. There's an Ouroboros motif there. So he would know that people would know about the Ouroboros, would connect it to the. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'm thinking of, would it be practical for him to communicate this idea that way? But yeah, it works. It
We
works.
I don't know if you know this, or I don't know if I've brought it up previously. Jung did a seminar on Nietzsche's Thus Spake Zarathustra. So, and it had like Marie von Franz and other apostles of Jung in it. I've listened to it with my Robo reader like years ago. I need to do like a whole thing on it, but like Jung took that text and went through it for multiple years. He taught this seminar and he went through it very carefully. And the fact that that song is like mixed up, like in the space program stuff because of 2001: Space Odyssey, like is huge. It's totally huge. I mean, it's also a reference to Zoroastrianism, which has has Mithras in it. Not It's not the primary god, but it gets into this whole sun god thing as well. So it could be just that, but I have a feeling it's about Jung and Nietzsche.
Yeah, at at this point, I'm very satisfied with all these connections. I think if we'll stop here, I'll be satisfied. Okay, I've understood what is driving it because he's driven it so many times, and you have pointed out it from so many directions. I'm pretty impressed and like I'm satiated for my life. That's what I feel about this thing.
you, you're like, I'm done. I don't ever have to read a book again.
No, I don't have to like search for it. I think I can read more about this, but I don't have to like, like be in the dark anymore. I think it's,
Yeah.
yeah, have enlightened me.
Well, no, dude, I'm figuring it out as I go. You know, I I barely know what I'm talking about. Um, I wanted if let's just very quickly. I just want to look at two things real quick. We won't even. I'll save the other slides for the next time. I just want to make sure I get this out. Okay, let's go to two
Sure.
forty.
Can
Oh,
I
sure. Oh,
chime
I'm
in?
sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh, not at all. We're talking about the unification of opposites. And yes, I think intellectually we have covered it. But I would also say embodying that into wisdom and being able to integrate those within the self is quite the journey. And I cannot say that I've arrived. I'm not sure that will happen, but I'm trying.
Yeah. I'm just getting started.
That's right.
Yeah,
Always.
just getting started. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very quickly, I just wanted to look at these two and then let's call it a day because I know it's super late where Ostic is. Although I'm jazzed. I could go
Yeah.
for 3 hours.
Okay.
Uh, no, it's 7 o'clock. I got to make dinner. Um, and it gives me something to talk about next time. So this Ouroboros in different world mythologies is associated with certain gods and figures. It, ironically, it's associated with Jupiter and Zeus, according to Jung. But then there's some Egyptian ones, Mahan and Atum, and also Mercurius, which in alchemical traditions. So I'm just let's revisit that one day. But the Ouroboros does have counterparts in other religions, according to Jung. I have to think about, especially since so much Zeus and Jupiter talk. I have to think about this a little bit more, but it's there. And Jordan, let's if the next slide just um, you know, and as we kind of fill out the meaning of all the different symbolism in Apollo, I think we need to think about the programs that preceded it too. We had the Mercury program and then the Gemini program and then Apollo. And especially if we're thinking about the Ouroboros as this integration of opposites, the symbol that appeared this on the meatball logo. Gosh, it sounds so crazy to talk this way. Um, I think we can start just broadly. If the Mercury program potentially Mercury is Hermes, and I think Jung understands um, Mercury to be a trickster figure. So it would kind of make sense that that would be the first one that set this process of the integration of opposites together. And then after that came Gemini, which could be about bringing those opposites in into opposition, right? We could, all those astronauts in Gemini, their each mission had two, and then when we get to Apollo, it's about the integration, just broadly speaking, and maybe it just fits a little too well. I'm not married to any of this. I just want to throw that out there that might be what we're talking about, and then whatever else I have for today. Oh, we're going to talk about Jack and the Beanstalk and Marie von Franz and fairy tales and mice, etc. But I'll save that for next time. So we can bring it to a close there if you want.
All right. Ostic, any final words for the audience?
No, I'm very excited for the next episode. And this was a great uh, episode. I've been reading Grimm's fairy tales for the past 3 days to help me
Oh,
sleep
have
at
you?
night. Yeah, I think of them
Maybe
as
we should.
like fairy tales at night. They're pretty funny. You should read them.
Yeah.
They're,
Oh
they're
yeah,
good.
yeah. Well,
There's an audiobook.
I maybe we should make a audio recording of Jack and the Beanstalk.
Mm,
Would
be
you get?
fun.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. It's short, be like
Hmm.
15 minutes. Maybe we could just do something midweek and read the
Yeah.
parts or something if you guys are available.
Screw finishing the Rudolph audiobook
We're gonna do it.
we're
We're gonna do
making.
it.
Yeah.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
There's so many things that are unpublished and untranslated even. I was reading about Schnitzler's work. The most of it is untranslated. Most of his
Whose work?
is in Arthur Schnitzler. Arthur Schnitzler.
Schnitzler. There we go.
Yeah. Um, eh,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
crazy. It's totally crazy.
That
You
interview
should
I
You should listen to Dream Story. I listened to it on Audible or YouTube or something. It's pretty good.
yeah, I've read
And
it.
the original movie that uh that it was made into. It's a great little film.
Yeah. That actor who plays the guy who plays Tom Cruise. He was also in a movie by Powell and Pressburger, and that movie was called Peeping Tom. It was about a voyeur who's looking at women, and he's like kind of like hurting them with the camera, that sort of thing. And he was
I
also
don't
in
know
a.
that.
You've not heard about movies called Peeping Tom? It's a very popular movie.
No, never. No, I'll look it up.
Yeah, it looked pretty good. It looks pretty good for its time. I'm not sure about the content of it. And there's Powell and Pressburger, those two filmmakers. And yeah, there's so many films that connect to that movie, Eyes Wide Shut and Dream Story. Have you seen Annie Hall? You must have seen Annie Hall
Oh
by
yeah,
Woody
years
Allen.
ago though, before I
You
started
know,
thinking about all this
when
stuff.
they
But
when they're on the bed, they're trying to like get it on or something, and he he makes her smoke the reefer, whatever it is. Are you aware of that? Do you remember that
I don't
scene?
remember it. But
Then that
I don't.
then she gets out of the bed and there's her spirit. She's looking outside, and she is talking like, "I cannot make love to you, but because you're not there." And it actually mirrors that scene in Eyes Wide Shut, because they're also doing the same thing. I mean, there's so many
Oh
yeah, it's actually that, he picked up a lot of these scenes from movies from the 20th century. If you look for it, you'll find it. So I keep looking out for these things. I
yeah,
look for the
there's
actors.
yeah, and I'm seeing his name is Karl Heinz Bohm, who's in Peeping Tom, who was also in Trom Novel.
Yeah, yeah,
Gotcha. He played Fridolin. So
yeah, yeah,
and then he's in Peeping Tom, and then Tom Cruise plays
yeah,
him,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
plays that role. That's great. I love it.
I mean,
I love it.
that's a game. That's a different game he's playing, and this is the game that we're discussing. This is the serious game. The movie game, I
Yeah,
think it's a non-serious game. It's party time, but this is
yeah,
it's the serious game that's happening in the book.
yeah, yeah. All right, guys. Well, let's bring this one to a close, and we'll get together next week. I think we'll be talking about Diana next week.
Ooh,
Yeah.
sounds good.
All right. See you later.